lesson 102. This is called subtracting decimal numbers by using zeros. Now, some of these types of problems we've already actually looked at before, because what we need to remember is that we can have zeros at the end of a decimal number, and we can have as many zeros as we want, and the value will not change. So just because you only have one decimal place value in this number does not mean that it's smaller than this. When we learned about ordering decimal numbers and putting them in order from least to greatest, you actually have to look at the tenths place first. I have 4 tenths here and I have 2 tenths here. 4 tenths is automatically going to be larger. It doesn't matter how many digits I add here at the end. This one's going to be greater because there's only a 2 in the tenths place and a 4 in there. So because I have an empty space here, I can't necessarily subtract and just say that I'm going to bring the 3 down. We still have to subtract as you always have subtracted before. So since I have an empty space here, this problem then needs to be rewritten like this, where I add my extra 0 right here in the hundredths place, and then I can subtract as normal. So I have to borrow because I can't do 0 minus 3. I have to change this to a 10 and borrow it from the tenths place. So my tenths becomes a 3, and 10 minus 3 is 7, and 3 minus 2 is 1. So I have 17 hundredths with this problem. So whenever I have an empty space, all I need to do is just plug in a 0. It's a very simple concept to remember. We're just taking this a little bit, this extra step farther with our examples and our practice problems and being able to subtract decimals. And you can also add decimals correctly by adding extra zeros, or at least lining everything up. So example 1, I want you to actually go ahead and try this on your own and see what you can do. And I'll go ahead and solve it to make sure you get the right answer. We have 0 and 4 tenths minus, very similar to the problem I showed you, 0 and 231 thousandths. Now I have 2 blank spaces up here, so I'm going to plug in zeros. I can't do 0 minus 1, so I'm going to need to borrow from a 4, which becomes a 3. This then becomes a 10, and I still need to borrow, so it will be a 9. And this will be left as a 10. So 10 minus 1 is 9. 9 minus 3 is 6. And 3 minus 2 is 1. So I have 169 thousandths. And I can go ahead and put a 0 here. I don't have to have a 0. Either way, it's simplified. Example 2, 3 minus 1 and 23 hundredths. Go ahead and try this one also on your own. Okay, remember, since 3 is a whole number, I can actually write it by adding zeros at the end, but I need to have a decimal point first. I'm not turning it to a 30 or a 300. It's still 3, so I need 3 decimal point 0, 0, just like I do with dollars and cents. If this were to be $1.23, I can write $3 like this as well. So 3 minus 1 and 23 hundredths. This is going to be kind of tiny to write. Let's see. I have to borrow from the 3, which becomes 2. This becomes 10, which then will become 9 since I need to borrow and move more over. There's 10. 10 minus 3 is 7. 9 minus 2 is 7. And 2 minus 1 is 1. So I have 1 and 77 hundredths. I'll go ahead and rewrite that here. 1 and 77 hundredths is what you should have gotten for example 2. So hopefully knowing those and just being able to plug in zeros at the end, and with your whole numbers, you just add a decimal number and then put zeros, as many zeros as you need after the decimal numbers. Notice I didn't add too many zeros to where I'm dropping down extras. I want just enough so that I can subtract from the place values that I need. So go ahead and do the practice set problems. You have A, B, C, and D to do. You're just simply subtracting. You're going to have to plug zeros at the end to fill in the gaps. And I'll check those for a participation grade in class. Thank you very much for paying attention.